February 2026. A single Ukrainian drone penetrates 800 kilometers into Russian territory. 40 seconds later, an oil depot containing 12 million liters of fuel erupts into a geyser of fire. The explosion is visible from space. And just like that, Russia's entire southern logistics network begins to buckle. This isn't a random occurrence. It's a systematic annihilation. For 2 years, the world watched Ukraine fight a defensive war defined by trenches. Grueling artillery duels and grinding attrition. The narrative was predictable. Ukraine holds the line, Russia advances incrementally. The West sends aid, and the cycle repeats. But everything changed in January 2026. Ukraine stopped playing defense. They stopped merely reacting. Instead, they launched a coordinated, relentless campaign targeting the one thing Russia cannot replace fast enough: logistics, fuel depots, rail junctions, ammunition warehouses, command centers, bridge networks, every single choke point that keeps the Russian war machine breathing. The results have been catastrophic. Russian forces in occupied Donetsk are rationing ammunition. Armored divisions in Zaporizhia sit immobilized due to dry fuel tanks. Supply convoys are being obliterated before they even reach the front lines. Moscow is scrambling. For the first time since the invasion began, Russian military leadership is facing a crisis for which they have no blueprint. This is the story of how Ukraine weaponized precision, patience, and intelligence to bring Russia's logistics network to the brink of total collapse. This is the story of a war that has changed forever. Let's break it down, hour by hour, strike by strike. 3 o'clock hours. Rostov Oblast, Russia. A Ukrainian-modified UJ-22 reconnaissance drone crosses into Russian airspace at an altitude of 4,000 meters. It is small, lightweight, and nearly invisible to standard air defense radar. Russian S-400 systems designed to intercept high-speed fighter jets and ballistic missiles don't even register the lower CS radar cross-section threat. The drone carries a single payload, a 20-kilogram explosive warhead fitted with a GPS-guided detonation system. The target: the Millerovo fuel storage facility, one of the largest petroleum hubs supplying Russian forces in eastern Ukraine. At 3:47 hours, the drone enters its terminal dive. Impact. The initial explosion ignites a chain reaction across 17 storage tanks. Within minutes, the entire facility is engulfed in an inferno. Satellite thermal imaging later confirms temperatures exceeding 1,200 degrees Celsius. The depot held enough fuel to supply Russian mechanized units for 3 weeks. Now it is ash. But here's what makes this different. This wasn't a lucky shot or a symbolic gesture. This was the opening salvo of a meticulously planned campaign. Intelligence reports later revealed that Ukrainian forces had been mapping Russian infrastructure for months, identifying every fuel depot, railway hub, and ammunition cache within a 1,000-kilometer radius of the front line. Millerovo was just the beginning. By dawn, Ukrainian forces launched 17 additional strikes across southern Russia and the occupied territories. The targets are surgically selected. Taganrog railway hub, a critical junction linking Moscow's supply lines to Crimea. Ukrainian HIMARS rockets destroy 3 kilometers of track and disable the switching infrastructure. Repair estimates: 2 weeks minimum. Luhansk ammunition depot, a sprawling complex holding artillery shells and tank rounds. Single attacks missile outfitted with extended range capabilities strikes the heart of the depot. Secondary explosions continue for 6 hours. Seismic monitors in Ukraine registered the blasts as a magnitude 2.1 earthquake. Mariupol port facilities, used by Russia to offload heavy equipment. Ukrainian sea drones and manned explosive vessels navigate. 80 kilometers of coastline to detonate against grain silos repurposed for military storage. Supply operations halt instantly. Each strike compounds the damage. The Russian supply chain is now disintegrating faster than it can be repaired. Moscow is furious. Defense Minister Andrei Belesov convenes an emergency meeting with General Valery Gerasimov. The question is simple. How did Ukraine penetrate this deep? And how do we stop it? Russia responds with a massive reallocation of air defenses. Panzer S-1 and Torum-2 systems are rushed to Rostov, Belgorod, and Voronezh. Electronic warfare units are mobilized to jam drone frequencies. But there is a fundamental problem. Russia's air defense network was designed for a NATO-style air war involving high-altitude bombers and cruise missiles. Ukrainian drones are flying low, slow, and crucially cheap. A single UJ-22 drone costs approximately $90,000. A single S-400 interceptor missile costs $1.5 million. The math is unsustainable. Even when Russia successfully intercepts a drone, they lose the economic exchange. Ukraine can afford to lose 100 drones. Russia cannot afford to fire 100 of its most advanced missiles. Behind every strike is a shadow war of information. Ukraine's precision is fueled by a sophisticated intelligence mosaic. 1. Western satellite imagery. Allies provide near real-time surveillance. Every convoy movement and supply train is cataloged. 2. Human intelligence. Operatives and resistance cells inside occupied territories, relay guard rotations, and delivery schedules. 3. Signals intelligence. SIGINT. Ukrainian cyber units intercept communications. A sudden spike in radio traffic near a quiet warehouse often signals a fresh resupply, a new target for Ukrainian planners. By the end of week 1, Ukraine has executed 43 confirmed strikes. Russian supply efficiency in occupied zones drops by an estimated 38%. Fuel is the lifeblood of modern maneuver warfare. A single Russian T-90M tank consumes roughly 300 liters per 100 kilometers. A mechanized brigade requires 200,000 liters a day just to stay mobile. By week 2, Russian field commanders report units operating at 60% mobility. Offensive operations stall. Armored columns sit stationary, becoming sitting ducks for Ukrainian artillery. Desperate, Russia begins using civilian fuel trucks to transport diesel. On day 12, a convoy of 19 civilian trucks is intercepted by drones near Mariupol. Coordinates are relayed to a HIMARS battery 47 kilometers away. 11 trucks are vaporized, the rest flee. Russian logistics officers are left with a choice: move in daylight and be destroyed, or move at night and face Ukrainian night vision surveillance. There are no good options. Russia's logistics doctrine is built almost entirely on railways. Unlike NATO, which is truck-heavy, Russia relies on the efficiency of rail to move massive tonnage. But railways are fixed infrastructure. You cannot hide a train, and you cannot reroute it without track. Starting week 3, Ukraine targets the steel arteries, switching yards, paralyzing regional networks. Bridges. A single strike on a bridge near Taganrog halts all rail traffic to Crimea for 11 days. Signal stations. Sabotage teams disable the electronics required for safe passage. By the end of week 3, Russian rail capacity into occupied zones drops by 52%. Artillery units begin rationing shells. Morale plummets as food supplies become inconsistent. Artillery is Russia's god of war. For 2 years, they outgunned Ukraine 5-1, but a 152mm howitzer is just a heavy tube of metal without shells. Ukraine has systematically erased Russia's stockpiles. On day 24, a TACMS missiles strike the Tokamak ammunition depot, detonating 40,000 shells in a 14-hour firestorm. Similar strikes follow in Berdyansk and Luhansk. By week 4, Russian batteries that once fired 200 rounds per day are limited to 60. The artillery balance is shifting not because Ukraine has more guns, but because Russia has fewer bullets. By early February 2026, the cumulative damage is undeniable. Offensive operations are no longer sustainable. Then, Ukraine escalates again. On February 8th, they launch their deepest strike yet. An oil refinery in Volgograd, 900 kilometers from the border. Using a newly modified high-speed long-range drone, they bypass all defenses. The refinery, which processes 15 million tons of crude annually, burns for 3 days. The message to Moscow is clear: nowhere is safe. What Ukraine has achieved is strategic genius. By targeting the ability to fight rather than just the soldiers on the line, they have turned Russia's greatest advantage it sees into its greatest liability. Every kilometer of supply line is now a vulnerability that Russia cannot defend in its entirety. So, where does this go? Can Russia pivot its entire logistics doctrine under fire? Or has the balance of power permanently shifted? If Ukraine can do this with current tech, what happens when even more advanced systems arrive? This war is being won and lost in the rail yards and fuel tanks, hundreds of kilometers behind the trenches. And right now, the Russian war machine is starving. What do you think happens next? Can Russia recover, or is this the beginning of the end? Let us know in the comments below.